This time, on No Not the Mind Probe, episode number 102. In one portal and out the other.
Welcome to No Not the Mind Bro. Hey, it's like a surprise. It's a surprise. Also, you're holding up non-Doctor Who branded merchandise.
I don't know where my Doctor Who toys are. My daughters have hey, look, this is good news. My daughters have taken them. So maybe they're interested in Doctor Who now.
Yeah, or they're thieving. Maybe
that's true. They're
thieving daughters who have stolen your stuff.
Dirty, swarthy thieves.
That's problematic. I'm just going to say,
mine.
if your children, if you describe your children as thieving, you may be in trouble. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's one of those no adjectives they talk about in schools or at part of school, whatever it is. You know what? It's not a podcast, but this is a podcast where we watch and rank the first 300 Doctor Who stories. My name is John Grant, and I am a lifelong Doctor Who fan. I've been watching it for 40 absolutely fantastic,
wonderful years,
right up until now. Years.
My name is Porter Mason, and John's been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 28 years. A few years ago, I finally said yes. Each episode of the podcast will look at 2 stories. We're going through the NuWho series in order.
Contemporary Who, NuWho, Contemporary Who is the current Who. I don't know. Disney Who is the current
Cool Who. Yeah, now it's Disney Who, but it wasn't Disney Who. BBC America Who. And our Doctor, we're in the season 9 currently of that. And our Doctor Who sommelier, John, whom you just met, will pair one of that NuWho story with a classic story. John, what do we have in store for these stories in this episode?
All right. Wow, we are back on track with the 12th Doctor and Clara. No, that sounded like she was choking. Clara. You made it sound like a pervy German. Clara is Clara. Was Clara is very attractive. Clara. Pervy German. Could you do the whole episode in pervy German accents?
Because it's possible.
I will always enjoy that. But we won't, because this is a serious podcast about Doctor Who, and we're going to talk about the woman who lived, and we're going to meet Ashildr again. She's back. If you missed her in the 30 seconds between when you stopped the last episode and started the next one on your DVD, don't worry, she returns right away. And this one, since it involves some sort of universe hopping aliens who are trying to take over via a black hole portal, I believe, of some sort, it's easily paired with a 4th Doctor, Doctor number 4, Romana number 2, Canine number 2 story, The Horns of Nimon.
Ooh. All right, so we're going to recap things here. We'll start with the woman who lived. As we mentioned, Ashildr was a girl who died, but then she now lived. So,
or did she? Yeah.
We'll follow the continuing stories of Ashildr, or should we call her something else? We'll find out about that shortly. This is Series 9, Episode 6. We got Clara. We got the 12th Doctor. We're moving along. October 24th. 2015, again, 9 years ago. Nine short years ago.
Woo.
It was crazy times back then. People thought Trump might be president. It was just a weird moment.
Ridiculous. Oh boy.
We are going to play a little clip here.
I
didn't mention this last time, and I apologize, but I should mention this is story number 257 of the Doctor Who stories.
Woo.
So we're getting there.
We're down to the final 50 here.
Final 50. Here is a clip.
Let's go.
Robbery, burglary, that's capital. Meat and drink to the hangman, Ashildr.
I'm not Ashildr. I'm me. And I fear no hangman in Christendom. Sam Swift the Quick. I wouldn't be so bold if I were you. Don't you know who I am?
The Nightmare, which is why I'm not alone.
'Tis hardly a fair fight.
And it was fair when you stole my patch.
Is that a fake nose, Sam? Should call you Sam Sniffed.
What's wrong with it? It's perfectly normal, isn't it?
For an anteater, maybe.
Ooh. Well, never knew you were so puny. Nightmare, or should I say, slight mare?
No, not the puns. Line in the sand. No puns.
It's what's in my brain that counts, bingo boy.
Well, no brain outwits a bullet, dandy prat.
This is banter. I'm against banter. I'm on record on the subject of banter.
Lay down your arms, hand over the loot, or I'll shoot.
We better had. We'll probably aim to miss and hit one of us.
We could give you cash instead.
Who's this? Your sidekick? You got your dad as a sidekick?
I'm not his dad, I'm the doctor.
Is that the best name you could come up with?
What, says Sam Swift the Quick? It's trying a bit too hard, isn't it? Or are you a little bit slow?
I love that. I love that scene.
Yeah, slow Peter Capaldi. And that is Rufus Hound, who is apparently a fairly well-known comedian. I can't say that I have come across him other than in Doctor Who. I don't know if you've seen his work, but he's very good, yeah.
He plays a big part in this episode, which takes place in 1651 in England, as you know, most intergalactic intrigue happens.
Come through England,
and the Doctor comes looking for an alien artifact called the Eyes of Hades, which is he's tracked down there. It's on Earth right now. He meets up with who we just saw here, a highwayman who people know as the Nightmare.
Stand and deliver.
Yeah, it's in the middle of a robbery attempt by the Nightmare, and we realize that the Nightmare is a Shilder, who now goes by Me, and has been alive for about like 300 or 400 years.
A long time, yeah.
So we learn a lot about her. We see a bunch of flashbacks. She kind of takes us through it, and basically what happens is she's immortal now, as we've discussed, and it has left her very lonely, detached. They mentioned a few times her body can now last centuries, but her mind has not been, given some kind of software upgrade to be able to deal with this. So there's certain things that she kind of can't process.
Right.
That's why she ultimately, goes by Me. She hardly remembers who she was at the beginning. She writes down all her memories in journals, but like it's really faded from her. So she exists in this weird state where she's immortal. She's lived for centuries, but she really is also only cognizant of what's happening right this moment. She can't have any close relationships because everyone she loves gets old and dies, and she remains the same.
It's a pretty clever Stephen Moffat. It's one of those ones of Stephen Moffat's ideas where you're like, he clearly thinks through this thing. He's like, all right, what would happen if you were immortal?
And she's immortal, but she's not given the powers of like the Doctor or something like that. Like she has to just stay here on Earth. She doesn't have like superpowers.
Yeah. Just him thinking through, right, what would happen if you're immortal? And it's such a clever idea to be like, your brain couldn't remember everything. You can't remember 600 years or how many hundreds of years worth of stuff. You'd start to forget all this stuff. And what would that be like? And it's a very, it's a hats off to Stephen, tip of the hat to Stephen Moffat here.
Turns out,
very clever idea. Yeah.
Turns out Stephen Moffat, good writer. Very interesting development here that happened in this episode. So she's been a healer. She's been a fighter. She was a queen. And
I know the feeling.
Oh, you scoundrel.
Oh, wit.
The Doctor is very troubled by her lack of compassion. Shilder's trying to get off Earth, so she has made a deal with an alien called Leandro, who is a crazy lion dude.
Leandro, and I believe it's of the Leonin is the name of they did not reach deep. So a lot of cleverness went into the brain storyline, and they're like, lions.
This was more
lions.
like this is like Harry Potter level naming, not Tolkien level naming. But basically the lion people have said, we'll get you off Earth if you help open this portal, and he needs this Eyes of Hades. Now, is this just a MacGuffin? Do we find anything more about it? Like, it's just, we need this to do this?
Something to open the portal. Yeah, I don't recall that there being much more about it.
Yeah.
I also do have this picture of, for whatever reason, it's been a while since I've watched this episode for this, but it's just I pictured the lion guy as the king from the animated Robin Hood.
Yes.
With like the crown and like
that's very much what he looks like. Leandro. Doctor trying to convince her not to do it, but she wants to do it. So in order to do this, they have to get the eyes of Hades, and then they have to sacrifice someone. And she decides it's going to be on Sam Swift here, who we just met, who's been kind of like a partner in crime. So then there's a great scene where he's up to be hanged, and he's essentially vamping to keep from being hanged
in the side.
And it's just a great scene, like to watch him do this, because he's also genuinely like knows the finality of this, but is also just kind of enjoying entertaining, and like I don't know, just I really enjoyed it. He ultimately activates the portal. We find out that the lion Leandro, his name is very funny to me.
Leandro
is not going to take Ashildr away, but actually is going to bring in aliens to invade.
Typical lions,
typical fire-breathing lions. So because she goes through to kill Sam and do this, and then decides that what she's going to do is they close the portal, and then she uses her little chip to save Sam, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't make him immortal, right?
Yes, and I keep forgetting why, because I was like, because it's like we never hear from him again.
It has something to do with combining with the eyes of Hades, like
it burnt it out, or it's going to have a shelf life, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess the tragedy is that he left her the chip at the end of the last one, just sort of be like, well, if you get lonely, and this is an awful curse, and if you get lonely, you can subject someone else to it. It's a very.
I suppose the idea is like you fall in love, and then, but she never did that. I guess she never. I mean, she did. It sounds like she did have people in her lives that she loved, but she never like used the chip.
Well, and then I think she got to the point where she's like, "Oh, I wouldn't want to have them go through what I've gone through, which is quite awful." I guess it's very similar, I guess, to the vampire thing, right? That a vampire can make you immortal, but then obviously there's the curse of being the vampire, which is you live in really nice houses and you're very rich.
So anyway, by the way, Leandro is left for dead. There's a great scene at the end with Sam and at the bar, at like the pub after. And again, I really enjoyed that. I love how he was just nearly killed by this woman, and then he's just like, no hard feelings. Like, this is how it goes around here. It's so anyway,
the highwayman, I think.
Go to the highwayman, and she says that she likes watching over people. And she says, you know what? I'm going to be here, and I'm going to watch over the people that you screw over. Not even screw over to the doctor. She's saying this.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily just screw over, but like basically what's left in your wake. Yeah. I will come and shelter those people and take care of them. And it sounds like nice, but also it's a little antagonistic. Like, I'll clean up your mess. Okay. I'll clean up your mess.
Yeah.
And it definitely does seem like I got from this episode very much vibes like who was the guy who came in and out wasn't like a full companion, but Jack
Captain Jack.
Captain Jack.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I kind of got that vibe from this, where it was like I feel like Ashildr's sticking around.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's all. But I liked her, and I found, to your point of the story, like I found this a really compelling story because it really was this exploration of an idea of like what would happen. So in a way, a very small story, like it's not involving about big intergalactic changes. It's just like, what would she do? But it was a very interesting thing of like, what would happen? And you rarely would see that this thing happened in a previous Doctor story to kind of a minor character. And then we follow through on like, here's what happened. It's almost was weird to me that it happened. We talked about last episode. Oh, this could have been a 2-parter, and they're very different stories. And it almost felt like normally in modern Who, you might get this story, but another 2 unconnected episodes would happen in between,
or even a season later. Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe even a season. So it was interesting this happened immediately after.
Yeah, I mean, clearly trying to obviously build her up as part of the season arc, which we're building here. It's it is a light story. It's very funny. Again, I love Peter Capaldi when he's in that funny mood, and gets to play the humor stuff and bouncing off of Rufus Hound and stuff like that. It's very good. It's interesting. I was watching it this time. I was trying to be like, okay, interesting that they sideline Clara. She's just not in it. And I don't know, she's in the bathroom or something like that. It'd be great if they were just like, she's in the bathroom. She'll be out any minute now. Yeah, they sort of sideline Clara. And so I'm like, all right. And then, I was trying to look at, is Ashildr, are they trying to say like this is what Clara will become, in a sense of this sort of, if she's, again, I think the Doctor is worried about Clara and the way she's behaving and how she's reacting to all the stuff that's happening around her. It's like, oh, is she going to become this callous thing? And in fact, the line at when he first meets Ashildr / me in the forest in the Highwaymen, when she takes off her mask, she says, "What took you so long, old man?" And I'm like, I'm almost sure that's a Clara line or something like that. Like I feel like it's a line she has said or would have said. And so it just felt like they're trying to draw some parallel there. Also, I will use this to tout. Have you seen the completely made up adventures of Dick Turpin on Apple TV?
No.
This is a comedy show with Noel Fielding, who's from the IT Crowd and stuff.
From the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah, and from the Great British Bake Off. It's very funny. It is basically a Highwayman show, and he's kind of he's playing Dick Turpin, and he's kind of an idiot, and he's trying to be a legendary highwayman. But it's one of those shows that's obviously set in a historical time period, but they all think like modern people and talk like modern people and stuff like that. It's very funny. Apple TV, check it out. If you haven't heard of Apple, great company, a lot of interesting work coming out of them. And keep an eye on them.
One to watch in 2025.
This is the Jim Cramer portion of our show. I'm gonna go buy on Apple. Ding.
All right, why don't we head over to our classic episode?
Roll on over.
Because, by the way, the other linking theme here, we didn't talk about this. We got the portals. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But what about weird creatures with huge heads that look like mammals?
Giant.
So we have bison heads here in this story. The Horns of Nimon.
Nimon.
Yep. So this was season 17, story number 5.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We mentioned before, we have the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker. We have Romana Mark II, K9 Mark II. It aired it's the 108th Doctor Who story. It aired the 22nd of December through Christmas, 1979, and then ended the last four-parter. The last part aired the 12th of January, 1980. So this brought us into the 80s. What else? No other returning characters here. So let's play a clip here.
This clip is one of my favorite jokes in Doctor Who. So I'm just setting that up.
Horns of Nimon.
Solid. Well, have you arranged for another ship to attack Enid?
No, sir. It's the lost ship. We've located it.
What?
It's reappeared on the scanners. We've just had a signal. Apparently they had some sort of accident. The captain was killed, but it's all right now. And they're due to dock in 2 hours.
Prepare for the ceremony at once.
Yes, sir.
The great pact nears its completion. The Nimon be praised. Skonos shall rise and conquer.
So what is this Nimon? The great god of Skonos. They say he's a terrible creature with awesome powers.
If we don't pay tribute, the Nimon will destroy us.
Sounds like an insecure personality to me.
He lives in the power complex.
That fits.
That's good.
That's one of my favorite jokes.
I did like that. If you're not watching, by the way, these are on YouTube. If you're not watching them on YouTube, you just check them out. If you're not watching on YouTube, you saw John and I both react to. There's a great explanation of like, oh yeah, we found the ship. The captain went away for a while, and now he's okay, or whatever it was. It's such a weird.
He's dead. No, he's dead, but the ship is fine.
All right. This is Romana. Yeah, Romana number 2. By the way, maybe we'll talk about her more, but I was watching Romana a lot this episode. She plays she's kind of in control for big parts of the episode.
Yeah, she even has her own sonic screwdriver, which is
and I feel
huge.
like what doesn't work for me, maybe particularly about this Romana, is that they just started to make her too much of just another doctor. Like she's very similar to the Doctor, in like her affect and just a lot about her. So she's not bad. Like I like the actress, but it's like she's not providing anything new. Like it would have been more interesting, of course, at the time had she just been a regeneration of the Doctor. Like that
would be very good. No,
she could have been the Doctor. Like it was fine. But because it's her and the Doctor are just, I don't know, she's not as interesting.
Well, yeah, I've seen some commentary that sort of like it's almost like a superhero show. It's like these two supremely capable, confident characters kind of just and it's almost like nothing is really that hard for them to deal with because it's just like we got this. Like there's sort of very there is sort of this. It seems to be a little less jeopardy because it's just like whatever they can handle. Like, and it is interesting because you do like when you get the companions usually separated from the Doctor, it's like, oh no, they're helpless. How are they going to navigate this? But yeah, you're right. She's having her own Doctor Who adventure because she's got a sonic screwdriver. She knows everything that's going on. She's just like, yeah, sure, I got this.
All right, so the Doctor and Romana, they get a distress signal from a damaged spacecraft belonging to the planet Skonos. They get aboard the ship. There's, by the way, there's this group of prisoners who were introduced to in the opening sequence. Forgot to mention, this story starts off with a bang because what do we get right in the first minute of the episode? Power rerouting.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to have something good because we have to reroute some power immediately on the ship. Anyway, they're doing a bunch of on the ship at first, and they're showing basically the pilots, the people in the command center. And then there's just this cut to the prisoners at one point, and you're like, I don't even know where these people are. Are they on the ship? But ultimately, we do find out that this group of prisoners are on the ship, but it is not set up well. That's where they are. So they're a group of young. And this is what I didn't know is like at first, are they castaways? Are they hiding out? But no, they're prisoners. And they're brought
tribute.
Yeah, they're brought from Aneth. And they're sent to be, as tribute. They're going to be sacrificed to. It almost feels like a god, but we found it's just another alien being.
Just another alien. That was the alternate title. Was it just another alien?
So then we find co-pilot Seth. It's such a normal name.
Seth is the prince. Yeah.
He explains that they give these sacrifices to the Nimon.
Nimon be praised.
Who says like, we'll keep the sacrifices coming, and then I'll help Skonos regain its glory.
Yes, he's promised this to Soldeed.
Yes, so then the Skonan leader Soldeed, he oversees them arriving. The Nimon.
Just brilliantly underplayed by Graham Crowder.
Yes, just a subtle. It's a wonderful scenery chewing going on, and that's always fun in this. I mean, this is such a good era for that. Like, it would be interesting if, and maybe there has been more of it recently. I don't know, but like, wish you could get more of that in the modern ones in some way that wouldn't just feel terrible. I don't know. Like, it's really fun. It's campy and enjoyable. So the Nimon is in kind of this maze type thing, and he's made Soldeed believe that he'll help because it's going to give like this great technology over in exchange for the tribute.
Yeah, and they're a crumbling empire, right? They used to be a great empire, and now it's all falling apart.
And Soldeed, I don't know. Like, I guess Soldeed does believe in. I mean, he believes that they have this technology.
Yeah.
But as we find out later in the story, he really is pretty convinced he's playing Nimon. Like, he's actually in command there. The Doctor and Romana by the way, I should say the Doctor saved the ship from crashing earlier, but is not really given credit for that. And as we heard him explaining later, I think it's the Skonan co-pilot just sort of waves it away. It's like, credit. No, that was me. Yeah. I fixed that.
But then it's immediately called out, and he's like,
yes. Well, he's like, you couldn't have done this.
I rebuilt the thing with the Hymetusite, and he's like, the Hymetusite. He's like, yeah, that's it. That's stuff. Yeah.
So what we found out is that the Nimon is they're parasitic. So they travel around, they go to the world. And this is a tale as old as time in Doctor Who. So that there are these parasitic aliens that just they drain all the resources and then they move on to the next.
Yeah, like I think the parallel is like locusts, right? They'll swarm over a planet and then
And for some reason they need the sacrifices to get energy.
I think they suck the life force out of the people, and then they use the crystals to power the power complex and to open the black
they're
hole,
trying to get.
Right?
So what they're actually trying to do though is to get to Skonos to drain that planet.
So they're opening a black hole between. They travel through black holes and they use them like punch a hole through the universe and travel from the one planet to the other. There's a wonderful scene where it's just Tom Baker and he keeps explaining this to Soldeed, and all Soldeed does is repeat whatever he says. Like, here's Tom Baker, like, they're building a black hole on your doorstep, and he's like, digging a black hole on my doorstep. It's just the scene.
Yeah, I like when they meet because he is kind of like Soldeed, as we mentioned, did call out the pilot. Like, he can kind of sense who's smart or not, and the Doctor is so smart immediately that he accepts him in and is sort of so. Who is the name of the Anethian the kid that
Seth and Tika? Tika's the woman, and then
Seth is the okay.
Yeah, Seth is the one that she says is going to save them.
Yeah. Tika keeps saying like, Seth is here and he'll destroy the Nimon, and Seth just keeps saying, like, "Hey, can we just keep it down?" Because and what we find out is that Seth has been. He was just in the right place at the right time, and then people think, or particularly some of the, some of the Anethians think he's some chosen one that's going to lead them out of the way, and he has allowed them to continue believing that because it has kept him alive.
Yeah.
So they, Doctor and Romana do prevent the Nimons from arriving. So they prevent the invasion, and then Soldeed is killed. He goes a little crazy, and then they lead them out, and they lead the Anethians out, and then I didn't quite understand the end because it happened so quickly that they're like, let's run through this one door, and they're like, quick, it's going to explode, and then they clearly paid the money for an explosion.
Yep.
So they show this model exploding for about a minute long straight. But I was like, weren't they just? Where are they running to?
Yeah,
they were just
it doesn't
there.
Quite work. Yes, they all were dead. Yeah,
right. But no, they're all fine.
They're
and
fine.
Then the Dr. Romana comes back. I should mention, K9's here throughout, and
a lot of K9.
You know, he's fine. I don't know. At least he's not like central to the story. Not this slow, Roomba running around. Like,
they do have him leading
everything.
him through the corridors on the way out. But yes, he's a little less. He's a little more.
And he doesn't do I forget if this happens with K9 Mark II, but one of my least favorite K9 things is the way he spits out his little ticker tape like a tongue, and they get
vital information
from him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst. Anyway, he's sidelined to some extent. So the Nimon are defeated. They get back to the TARDIS, and I mean the Skonans are going to rebuild. I don't know, but
the Anethans are going to they're going to fly home in the spaceship. So this is blatant retelling of the Minotaur story. Like the Nimon, Minuan, Aneth, Athens, Skonos, Knossos on Crete, Seth is Theseus. It's just like they just literally, and we're just gonna and in fact, this was at a time when they were doing some of these mythology stories. I don't think we've watched Underworld yet, but they have other stories where they're retelling some mythologies as well. But this is one of the more blatant ones, and even at the end, the Doctor is like, they're like, oh yes, do you think they'll be fine when they get back to Aneth? And he goes, oh yes, it's a good thing I remembered him to tell him to paint the ship white. Caused an awful lot of trouble last time when I forgot. So it's like basically, so remember the end of the Minotaur story is they're supposed to go back to Athens, they were going to paint the ship white to signal that it was no longer the Knosson ship or whatever. But they forgot, and then the king sees it in the distance, is like, no, they're dead, and then like kills himself, and they're like, no, we're fine. Anyway, that's how that story is. Sorry, spoiler alert, everybody. That's how that story ends.
So that's why he says that.
So the doctor says that so basically it's like, yes, I was there when the Minotaur thing, and so now here, and it's like, okay, so you're just blatantly being like, we're retelling the story. This is by Anthony Reed, but it's also during the Douglas Adams script editing era, which you can certainly tell. It's a very witty story. It is Tom Baker at his silliest, certainly. There's a lot of jokes in the story. There's the whole scene where he's in the TARDIS trying to get it to work, and he like turns the switch, and there's like this ridiculous explosion effect with like cars screeching and horns honking, and it goes on for like 30 seconds, and then he just goes, "That's not right," or something like that. But it's like for a lot of Doctor Who, this was a little too silly. Like this is sort of the season. This season is considered like sort of the. This is the last season for script editor Graham Williams. This is Douglas Adams. It's like this is a little too ridiculous. It can't be this silly. And Tom Baker sort of out of control, over the top. And then obviously you got Graham Crowden just way chewing the scenery wonderfully as Soldeed. Interesting fact: Graham Crowden was considered for the Fourth Doctor role, which could have been very interesting. He's been in a lot of things. The thing I know him from, probably a lot of Americans know him from, he was in a sitcom called Waiting for God. He's at a retirement home with Stephanie Cole, who's another well-known sitcom actress. It's very funny, but he's also sort of plays this crazy old man. And then the Nimon, great voices. I like the Nimon voices are really the like growling, deep voices. The costumes are, yes, people in tights with a giant buffalo head. So apparently the story is that they were supposed to be trying to masquerade as more scary than they were, so that the heads were going to actually be masks, and they would take them off and just be less impressive aliens, as sort of like they're fooling them. But then they were like, we don't have the budget to do a second mask under the first mask, so it's like we're going with that one, and that's what it is. So they're a bit unwieldy, and they sort of walk with the the giant heads back and forth, like they bend over to shoot at people. Yeah,
I just love the idea. The concept for the alien is like, what if bison had horns that were straight?
Yeah, and could shoot laser beams. And yeah, everybody's like, my God, it's good.
You will believe that bison horns can shoot lasers, that lions can breathe fire. Yeah. Themes are a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. You don't know that song, John, but that is a famous song from a video game called Portal. And it's quite a wonderful song. It plays at the end of the game, and it's
if
wonderful.
You win, if you get all the portals, or if you go through all the portals.
By the way, that is a rare video game that I would say that you should play, because it's a puzzle game, first of all.
This is the one where you're trying to get you have two portals and you're trying to get through the room or whatever. Oh yes, I've heard of this.
And as you play it,
I would
it's a rare game too. I think I haven't played tons of games, but of the games I played, it's relatively rare in that it's very funny. And which is hard to explain how that would happen during a game, but you're essentially escaping out of this like a science laboratory, Aperture Sciences, and the loudspeaker is talking to you throughout, trying to tell you like you should not be doing this, and it's sort of like HAL Lab, like a HAL from 2001 talking to you the whole time, saying like you shouldn't be doing this, and the computer is very funny. And in fact, in the second one, the what is his name? Stephen Merchant from The Office, is a prominent voice in it, and like he just talks to you throughout the whole thing, and it's really really funny. And then the song is really great, and it's also funny.
I'm looking for a new game because I've just, I think, finished Space Invaders, and I was like, I think I've pretty much mined this for as much.
You've maxed out your character.
Like the character arc of the little cannon. Just really, I'm like, okay, I feel like feel like I got it now.
It is great. It is a game that is very fun. Anyway, we do not play video games here on No Not the Mind.
We don't have time. We're doing a podcast.
That's right. But we are adherents of the repeating themes. We like to talk about topics and ideas that are threaded throughout Doctor Who and throughout all of time and space. John, what did you want to discuss in this episode?
Let's talk about over-the-top acting. It feels like this would be the place to do that. We've got obviously Soldeed. In this one, you got Tom Baker really hamming it up a little bit too. 2 weeks or 2 episodes ago, pardon me, we watched The Underwater Menace, and we had Nothing Can Stop Me Now performances. Certainly, Doctor Who has had a few over-the-top performances, usually in the villain category. I mean, I think Sam Swift is a little over the top, but not quite in Soldeed territory. Witty, certainly. But what do you think? What do you think about some people it bothers, right? Some people are like, I don't want scenery chewing. I want Shakespearean drama, which was ridiculous because Shakespeare's pretty over the top too. Some people are like, no, I want realistic, subtle characters, and over the top ones remind me of children's stuff, and I don't like that. That's not really good drama. But everybody, I mean, I'll tip my hand a little bit. Horns of Nimon is not a great story, but Soldeed kind of lifts it a little bit, right? I mean, there is something about it's entertaining to watch somebody really go for it. So, which do you prefer, over the top acting or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an acquired taste, because it's definitely one of the things that when Mrs. Probe walks by while I'm watching one of the classic episodes,
it's on, yeah.
And then pays attention for some period of time, and then usually sighs and says, I don't know how you watch this stuff. And I think the overacting is part of it. It's similar to, like, some people have a hard time watching movies. Essentially, I would say movies pre Marlon Brando. Like, Marlon Brando really brought in, I think he brought in method acting, right?
He's the first method, yeah.
And first big screen actor who did method acting. And it ushered in a real change. So if you watch movies prior to that time, the acting is very stilted. It feels much more like you're very aware you're watching something, someone pretending to be someone else. And it came from, because it was movie acting, television acting was developed out of acting for the stage. And when you act for the stage, you're often acting bigger, because you're trying to get to the people in the back and make sure they really understand what's or at least that was the style. And anyway, this new method acting came around, where you're really trying to tap into deep emotions and trying to present something real on camera. It doesn't always happen, right? But, like, more often than not, people are trying to do that, and you're getting that. So if you're used to watching that kind of cinema or TV, and then you watch something from, like, the 1930s, in most cases, it can feel like hard to even watch. Like, you just can't even watch that stuff. And this is part of that, where it's like there's sort of a flavor to this type of acting. If I'm in the right mood for it, I really appreciate it. But partly that's because I liked watching Mystery Science Theater, and I liked watching really terrible, not just sci-fi. Mystery Science Theater had, if you don't know that show, it's a show that was started on Comedy Central in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. And they would watch really bad movies from earlier times, and then they would give a running commentary over top of the movie. But as a result, I watched a lot of really bad acting and movies, and it's very enjoyable to me. Like, it's very comforting to me to watch people act like this, because you can almost feel the person. You see that they're having fun and really going for it, and as the phrase is, chewing the scenery. So I kind of enjoy it. Now, as I said earlier, I wish there was a place for it to be in the modern Who.
Yeah.
Because it's like everybody's got to be doing that. If just one person's doing it, it really stands out usually as bad. So I don't know. It's really hard to say. But
we've watched
some of the Tom Baker ones in particular in this era, I find I can really enjoy it. And I also will say that, like, there's a way to do it well, right? Because we've had some over the top or attempts at over the top acting in, I would say, some of the late of classic Doctors that it's just bad and it's not enjoyable to watch and it sort of antagonizes you. This, you're sort of like rooting for the people. They're just like having fun, really just making these big choices, and it just seems kind of fun. But they're not like, I don't know. It's not that they're in on the joke. I can't explain it, but like there's a way to do it well and have it be compelling, and there's a way to do it be like, ugh, I just can't even watch this and stomach this. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. So everybody's got to be kind of all on the same page. There's Time Lash, which we watched as a Sixth Doctor one, the one with H.G. Wells, and like the one guy is like really going for it, and everybody else is very bland or whatever. It's just like, yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, I guess there is a sort of a tradition of even. You know, the parallel in literature is kind of Dickens, which features very over the top characters, right? All the characters in Dickens are like scenery chewing, even though they're not actors. But it's like, you know, you've got the Uriah Heep is the horrible, bad. I think it's Bleak House, right? And or is that David Cobb? One of them. Anyway, you got all these like, and then these grotesque characters and these very funny characters, and all these ridiculous over the top characters. And those are I love Dickens. Those are very entertaining. Look, I'm gonna look, folks. If you haven't heard of Dickens,
check them out.
Check them out. This is good stuff.
Pickwick
a lot of
papers.
people ask at the bookstore. They might have some behind the shelf or something, and you got to look for them. But if you can find them, I highly recommend. So I think we love extremely sort of caricatured people and like sort of broadly drawn characters. Clearly that entertains us. But yeah, it does have to be. You have to be in the right mood or place for it, and it's gotta. I think maybe that's part of it is like depending on the setup of the story, you go in and you're like, all right, is this a we're having fun story, or is this going to be, you know, if Liam Neeson in Schindler's List had been like playing it like Graham Crowd and Soldeed, that would have been like, all right, I see what he's doing here. I'm not sure it works in this movie. Same kind of thing, right? So maybe it's got to be part of the mood, the whatever mood is being set. But then it can be or it can even. I wonder what it's like to be in the Horns of Nimon. Just generally, I just wonder all the time what would it's like. But like, yeah, when you got Graham Crowden just going for it like that, are you like, okay, dude, or are you like, this is great? It's so fun to be with this guy.
I think you'd be swept up in it, and I think your acting would start to. You start to go over the top too.
Yeah, go big too.
So that's why when you don't see the others up for it, then it betrays like something's wrong here. People aren't into it. Like they're not getting inspired by this. They're which might not necessarily be the fault of the person who's really hamming it up, but it could be. It could be that they're like, this is not what we agreed to do. Like we were actually trying to keep this real, and you're doing that. Like that's. So that could be
you can't, too. And that's we talk about this with Doctor Who all the time, and the actors talk about this. You cannot send it up, as they say. You cannot be making fun of the show. So you can be over the top, but you got to walk that fine line of I'm being over the top because this is the character, or this is, but it can't be like I'm being over the top because this is a silly children's show, and I don't really respect it. Like that, people react badly to.
But it is a silly children's show.
No, sir.
All right, John, we are ranking the first 300 official Doctor Who television
this
stories.
Silly children's show, apparently. Well, it's all coming out now. 102 episodes in.
John, there's horns on the bison and there's shooting lasers, all right? What is not silly or childlike about that?
I'm sorry it's not 7 episodes of historical costume drama for you. I know how much you love that.
No. Actually, that's what it was last episode, and I didn't like that, so there's no pleasing me. We have ranked 202 now. Of them, and so
that makes sense.
We will begin ranking our next episode, and I will start us off. Oh, I'm looking at the overall ranking.
Oh God! Stall.
Like I said, I really like this story. and I thought it was a really good exploration of this idea. It didn't go lots of different places, and Leandro is a little like disappointing.
I just picture the cover of the DVD. It's like a romance novel. It's got like a lion with like a long hair. It's like Leandro.
So I say that to say like that's why it's not rocketing to the top of the charts here, but I do have it ranked higher than average, but it's getting a little bit out of the middle of the pack. I have it ranked 67. I have it right above Night Terrors and right below Power of the Daleks, the Doctor's Wife. Because and really just because I enjoyed this episode, but as I started to look at some of the ones above it, I enjoyed those more, which is what rankings are. So I'm just explaining to you.
I don't understand any of
this. Anyway, that's I ranked it.
Is everybody clear on that? Email Porter at Mind if you don't understand how rankings are.
Oh god. Anyway, I did like this episode though. And much lower is Robot of Sherwood, and I definitely enjoyed it
less.
No, I enjoyed it more than that, but it's funny to me that they're even that close, because in my mind it's like I enjoyed it like a good bit more than that, but I just you know what it is like we're getting through like 200 of these episodes. The top of the list is like pretty solid. It's hard to like break into that because these are pretty good.
Yeah.
Horns of Nimon. I think I like this more than you. I don't hate it. It's definitely not in the top, but it doesn't sink way down below here for me. Part of it was like I did like the campiness. And it goes to Leandro. But with these guys, because it's campy and whatever, I kind of like these weird bison headed Nimon. Like I liked it. So I have it 133. So not like really high, but like it's definitely not in the basement. I have it right next to Time of the Doctor, In the Forest of the Night. Like, yeah, these ones I was like, it's okay, and there was some fun to it. I love Tom Baker, and everything I said about Romana Mark II before. It is starting to feel too samey, but I do like them together. Like she's great, and they have a good chemistry together. And
it's hard not to like her.
They feel like a brother and sister duo. They know each other's tricks and limited K9, so it keeps it up there.
Yeah, we're a little off on this one. The Woman Who Lived, fine story. I like it. I think it's the only thing that's memorable about it to me really is I do like Rufus Hound's performance. I think that's very good, but it is the central idea of like she can't remember her life, and so the effect on that has on her. So it's a bit one note for me. So it goes down into my one note section. I've got it at I think 117.
117.
Yeah, just below Amy's Choice, also sort of and above the Macroterra, of all sort of interesting but one-notey ideas. Just not particularly strong for me. Not disliking it. But yeah, just below my middle ground there. Horns of Nimon is way down. I got it down at 184. It's fun. It's fun comedy Tom Baker, certainly. And so I've got it sort of, I definitely have it. It's around Delta and the Bannermen, which makes sense for me of like, it's not Shakespeare, but it's fun and it's funny. But it is Doctor Who looking, it's certainly, this one, so if I'm remembering correctly, this ended up being the season finale because there was supposed to be a big 6-part season finale written by Douglas Adams, but there was a strike and that got canceled. It's Shada. We'll see Shada later. They put it all together later. I'll explain. So this kind of ends up being a very weak season finale, and it's the last one before they switch to a new producer, getting into the 80s and stuff like that. And it is kind of Doctor Who looking pretty tattered at this point. It's just looking a little rough by the time it gets to this point. And so you kind of get that feeling here. It's a little bit out of gas, so it needed a nice refresh, which it does get in the next season. But it's still definitely one that I will flip on every once in a while, especially if I'm like watching a really good drama. And I'm like, like I always look at The West Wing, and I think that Toby should have been played more like Soldi. I think that President Bartlett, it is I, Toby.
CJ should have had a big buffalo head.
Exactly.
All right, well, if we combine our rankings, which is really the only reason we do this show, this moment right here, this is what it's all about. This is the magic's about to happen.
So we could have just done this with a spreadsheet in a few hours, but instead we decided to
no, I would have had to watch all. You could have. I have to watch all these. Woman Who Lived ended up right in the middle of the pack at a 95.
Immediately below the girl who died.
Right below the girl who died, ranked at 94.
Look at that.
So there you go. And then we have Horns of Nimon, much lower down, 162. It's right next to Battlefield and Invasion of Time. It sounds right.
About right.
Sounds
yep.
good.
Yep. That's
but I wanted to check in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead with this. And then I want to check in on our rankings
you
by
run
doctor.
Your numbers. Yeah, I'm going to look at. Woman Who Lived is way down in the Peter Capaldi rankings. This is the Doctor Who magazine rankings. Number 32 of 35. So below The Girl Who Died. Only above Sleep No More, which we haven't watched yet. What's coming up? Kill the Moon and In the Forest of the Night. Only one's lower than The Woman Who Lived. It's right below The Caretaker. And then Horns of Nimon, number 40 of 41 in the Tom Baker year.
Really?
So yes, definitely below Meglos. So the talking cactus was considered better than this one, just above Underworld, which we have not seen yet, but
can't wait.
That to look forward to. This is about matchup.
Meglos,
I think
to me, is so much worse than this.
I mean, I think Meglos is next season, I believe, of this one, and so it looks a little slicker. I think it looks a little more 80s. Like, I mean, I think
Meglos looks real slick.
I think this is again. I think a lot of fans maybe have the impression I have, which is a little bit of like this is like it's Doctor Who not taking itself as seriously as it should, and just looking a little worse for wear.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I wanted to check in
stats
on our total rankings by doctor, because as we talked about before, you have Peter Capaldi ranked real low. That remains, though. This puts a little tarnish on it, but you still have Peter Capaldi ranked as well, far and away the lowest doctor you have now.
Best doctor, lowest
sorry,
number.
Meaning the best ranked doctor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm saying that in a completely
high means bad, low means
and that's not even true because it's the lowest number anyway. Whatever, highest rating because it's the lowest number. But the news is now I have Peter Capaldi ranked as the best ranked doctor as well. He is inched out. I'm wrong.
I'm wrong. But you're close.
What changed is that Tennant, I now have him ranked almost to David Tennant.
Yeah.
I still have Matt Smith ranked the top doc, and you would think this would have hurt Tom Baker some. It did a little, but you still have the third doctor.
He in 11th and Tom Baker in the 11th are neck and neck. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you have you have Peter Capaldi first, then you have Pertwee second.
Yeah.
And I forget. I don't know how many Third Doctor episodes we have left. We watched a lot of those, so I don't know if that's really going to change much.
Watched the number, yeah.
So I don't know that like you had that feeling of
maybe we have some real stinkers coming up. I don't know.
Really liking him a lot, but if anything, it just means that like his episodes were very consistent. I don't know,
Yeah, maybe. I think that's it. I think his episodes are all. I have Inferno very high, but I have a lot of Tom Baker very high. No, I think there's very. Gosh, we don't have a. When is our next third doctor? I'm just skimming through. It's going to be a while.
We watched a lot of them. Well, let's talk about that. So anyway, you can check out. That's a little behind the scenes of the rankings here, but you can check out our rankings on mindprobe.show. You can email me porter@mindprobe if you want to say anything at all. And then if you can also from the website check out the watch order so you can see what we're watching next. You can subscribe to the podcast, which we'd love it if you do. And please tell friends about the podcast. Please rate the podcast. John, speaking of the watch order, what are we watching next episode?
All right. Well, heading on into the Peter Capaldi era, we have I don't know, I'd call it a mid-season showstopper. I feels like we had a big two-parter with the return of the Zygons. The Zygons are back.
They terrorized us. There was a terror of the Zygons,
and then they showed up in Day of the Doctor. And then I guess they still had the costumes. And we should probably do some of these things. So we have Peter Capaldi. We have Clara. We have a unit returning. We got Cade and Osgood and all that good stuff in the Zygon invasion and the Zygon inversion. Clever. And then we've paired that. So since we've already burned the only Zygon episode in Classic Who, we had to go in a different direction. But we still went with aliens or robots or creatures substituting themselves for humans. But in this case, we have done this the Fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane, and a surprise little return from Harry Sullivan actually in the Android invasion. And that's what's ahead of us.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and we have a little bit of time here in the outro. I just want to explain again. If I like something more than the other thing, then I'm going to put that rank. I'm going to rank that higher.
Okay.
If I don't like it, I'm going to rank that lower.
Okay.
And so when you look at that list, nearer to the top, those are the ones I like more.
Oh, so what's interesting is, though, that all of those will be in the order of preference.
That's right. That's exactly right.
If you work through that, they're all going to be.
If you enumerate the list, you can almost rank. I mean, I guess you could use the term. You could see the ranking.
That is fascinating. This is like in that Good Will Hunting movie where the guy just solves them.
That's right. Mind probe that show. So,